Hello. I've had a few viewers ask me about my worm bin. I've mentioned before that I'd have more than just one bin at a time going. They were asking me how I do that. Well, so here's the basic worm bin. I have a large outer bin, and then inside in the bottom, you can't see it from here, but I have an upside down plastic bin, not, shoebox size, that I've just drilled a couple of holes in just so it can drain through. And then I've set this smaller bin, same kind of bin as this, just smaller, in the top. It has a bunch of holes drilled in the bottom, like this one does. Lots and lots of holes so that the worms, the liquid can drain through. And then I've also drilled holes all around the top, and that's for air circulation. And then, of course, the lid on top. So now this one's full, and there's still a lot of food in there, but what I'm going to want to do next is I'm going to want to let this one sit and give the worms a fresh place to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this second bin, and you can tell I've used it several times. These have rotated back and forth. I'll harvest one, and then I'll use one for feeding. So again, several holes, same procedure. This one will just sit on top like that, and then what I'll do is I'll take some shredded newspaper, just like that, just an inch or two layer in the bottom, and then on top of that I have this. It's the ground coconut husks. Now you can use peat moss, but this is a nice renewable source, whereas peat moss they're going into bogs, and it's not as easily replaceable. It takes a long time. So I tend to use this. I found it at a hydroponic store, and it feels just like peat moss. So what I'll do is I'll take this and I'll pour it and fill this about 2/3 of the way full with it. And then what I'll do is I will take that outside and soak it down really well and let it sit for a week. So I'll do that step next. Hello. So I wanted to show you a little bit more about my worm bin. Okay, here it is again. Yet again. And I showed you this part the other day. And they're little worms. Sometimes the worms get on the edge, but I just knock them back in. And I thought I'd just show you a little more detail. Ugh, this is heavy because it's so full. Okay. So that's where the worms live and all the compost goes. And see, I have a little upside down container in there, and all the fluids just drip around in the bottom there. That's the worm tea. And then every so often I will take this out like this and then put all the worms back in. There's a few worms around the edge there because this one has gotten too full, and there's too many worms for the amount of area there is. So that is why. Let me put you back here. Sorry for the bumping around. Okay, so that is why earlier in the week, sorry, that's really heavy, I put together this new worm bin. And I just, like I showed you, I put the newspaper on the shredded newspaper on the very bottom, and then I put the core, the ground coconut husks in the middle, and a little more of the shredded newspaper on top. Took it outside, sprayed it down really good with a hose, and now it's good to go. And of course it's, as I showed you earlier, holes all through the bottom, holes all through the side. And this is how difficult it is give your worms more home space. That's just way too difficult, isn't it? But anyway, so now, that's it. So now what will happen is the worms down in this bottom bin, as they eat through all the extra newspaper and all the food and all the bedding and everything, which they've pretty much eaten through the bedding, most of it except for that top layer of newspaper and stuff I put on there. Eventually they'll eat all that through, and they'll start working their way up through the little holes. Now I know a lot of people will wonder, well, what about this little gap here they can get out? The light. They don't like the light. They know if they come out here they'll most likely dry out and die, so they tend not to come out through here. They either stay in here or they will come up through the bottom, and then you have the top lid, which again keeps them in, keeps the environment in here nice and moist. Now I just fed them a couple days ago, and I gave them quite a bit, so they'll be good for a little while. And then probably in about a week, maybe a little less, I will start feeding up in this top bin, because now this is all fresh bedding, no worms, no worm castings, nothing like that. In fact, when I go on vacation, and I've done this before, what I do is I just make sure to give them a really good healthy feeding. And I've left them for 2 weeks, come back, and they were just as good as I left them. And it's that simple. A lot easier than having a dog or a cat for a pet, which you need to get somebody to come in and feed on a regular basis. But anyways, this is it just in my kitchen. I've had friends in, and even parties, and just slide it in underneath the table, and nobody ever knows they're even here. They have no odor. Even open like this, there is no odor, because it's all the food scraps are buried, and their castings don't smell. If anything, they might smell like a really healthy soil. But to me, I like that smell. And but just like this, absolutely zero smell. But anyways, just wanted to give you a little update and show you a little bit more detail about it. Now once the worms crawl up through here and start getting into here, and when it's time to harvest this lower one, it'll slowly go down a little bit as the worms come out and as they eat all the food that is in here. And I'll show you that at a later date. Alright, so I hope this encourages you to have worms in your kitchen. Be proud of it. Alright, talk to you later. Bye. So here we are at the end. You have your new worm bin set up with the extra worm bin on top for the worms, so they have more place to go. And then after you've harvested your worm castings and sifted them, this is after sifting them, you get this beautiful, dark, rich soil out of it. The white specks are eggshells. I grind up all my eggshells and put them in with their food. A few reasons. One, the worms use it as grit because they have gizzards, not teeth. Another reason is the worms like calcium, and the other thing is plants like the calcium as well, so it's just a good source of calcium all around for everybody. So anyways, I hope this kind of lets you know how it goes for those who have asked, and I hope you learned something new. When I go time to harvest that bottom bin, I'll do another video on that. Alright, thanks for watching. Bye.